Okay. Requirements lifecycle management knowledge area we are going to discuss now. Before we plunge into this knowledge area, now let us try to understand about requirement, how it is actually defined by IIBA. Okay, for that, let me take okay. Okay. So previously we discussed about what is the requirement and design, what is the relationship between requirements and design as well. We have previously we have discussed in chapter like chapter 2 it is there, and we are going to once again revisit it just for the sake of understanding what we are trying to now discuss on. Okay, basically requirements are focused on the need. That means whatever the client is giving you as a requirement, what is the client is sharing you as a need, that is all comes under requirements. Okay, and designs are focused on the solution. That means you listen to it, you listen to this need, and you come up saying that okay, for this we are going to achieve it in this way, like that you propose it, so those becomes the designs. Okay, now here actually as a business analyst our work involves from converting that need to a solution. Thereby we will actually work on the requirements and design. Okay, from the need we extract the requirements, and from the design the technical people will build the solution, and from the design the technical people will build the solution, right? So here it is very important for us that as per BABOK, the word requirement means it is two parts, it has two parts. Requirement means it is not alone the requirement, it is requirement and design, both are included. Now what is a requirement and what is a design? If you want to recollect it, what we are trying to do it, you see here, requirement is, let me say, view 6 months sales data across multiple organization unit in a single view. That is the requirement. Then the design would be a sketch of dashboard. That is the design here. For this requirement, this is the design. And reduce amount of time required to pick and pack a customer order. So here we'll be working on the process model. That will be a process model. And record and access a medical patient's history. Screen mockup showing data fields, right? And develop a business strategy, goals and objectives for a new business. This is business capability model. And provide information in English and French. This is a prototype of text displayed in English and French. Now you see, I want you to understand that these requirements actually they come from the stakeholders as a need, and these designs will finally convert it to an application, to a solution. Now what we actually work is from this requirement to design. This is exactly what we do as a business analyst. So I want you to just recall that vocabulary, that requirement is not alone requirement, it is requirement means requirement and design, requirement and design. Fine, got it? Clear on this? Now let us discuss about requirements lifecycle management. Okay, in requirements lifecycle management, what exactly we are trying to do is okay, as I've been saying, requirements and design we will be discussing on how to maintain the relationship between these requirements and design. And from here we are going to come up with the solution components. That is what we are going to come up with, the solution components. And also we'll be discussing about the accuracy and the relevance of these requirements and designs. Okay, and some of the requirements will be reusable. Requirements and designs are reusable. Reusable means few items which you actually work on now, you can reuse it in other projects or in other verticals, or in the same project in other concepts we can use it. So those things we will be identifying, reusability we will be identifying it here, so that it becomes easy for us, right? And then for this we will be understanding the value, urgency and risks involved with the requirements and designs. This is about prioritization. Here we can discuss about the prioritization and evaluate a new and changing stakeholder needs. Now this is very important. Don't consider that initially whatever we get as requirements is a final requirement. Over the period of time, okay, there comes change requests. So how to handle that change on the existing requirements and designs, we have to understand it. That is handling change requests. Okay, and Finally, we have to help stakeholders reach agreement on requirements and design. Now it is like approving, we have to take approvals on these changes or on these requirements and designs. We have to take approvals from the stakeholders. How we are going to take these approvals, that is discussed here in this requirements lifecycle management. Okay. Now, just to understand that, we have 6 knowledge areas. The first one is business analysis, planning and monitoring. And then we have discussed about elicitation and collaboration. These two are completed. And the next one we have requirements lifecycle management. So we are going to discuss about this requirements lifecycle management now. And along with that, we have strategy analysis, requirements analysis and design definition, and solution evaluation. Right? Got it? Out of the 6 knowledge areas, we are going to discuss about requirements lifecycle management now. Right. Now, requirements lifecycle management, as I gave you an introduction, okay, this is a knowledge area. Knowledge area means it will have so many tasks. Okay, it will have, as I've been saying, knowledge area means it's a collection of tasks. So what tasks we will be actually discussing is like, okay, so it is like the relationship between the requirements and the designs. This is like we need to establish the meaningful relationship between the requirements and design, and assess changes to the requirements and design when changes are proposed. That means if change is proposed, what is the impact on this? We have to assess those, what will is going on, and gaining, analyzing and gaining consensus on the changes. That means everybody should agree to it. All the concerning stakeholders should agree to it. So this is what we are going to do as the primary tasks here. Okay. Now, basically, in your mind, it should be there. The requirements lifecycle management. It all deals with requirements and designs, and how we are going to maintain, how we are going to track these requirements, maintain these requirements, and then we have got to prioritize the requirements, and then we have to gain consensus or the approvals of it. And before that, how to handle the changes which is going to happen on this requirements and design. This is what we are going to understand in this. Okay, we are going to understand about it. Okay. Now here we will understand that business stakeholders and solution requirements or designs are aligned to one another, and the solution implements them. That is what we have to, whatever they say as a requirement, how that whatever how the need they're proposing, the need, how the need is translated to different types of requirements, what is the relationship between these requirements, and who is approving it, the process, and how to bring in changes in this. All this is discussed here. Okay. Here we have to, like, supporting tasks. If you see, we have to monitor requirements and design, and we have been directing how requirements will be implemented, like in the actual solution, how it is being done. And here we have to design this requirements analysis information as well. Okay, we have to come up with the requirements analysis information as being the other knowledge area where we are discussing about requirements analysis information. So that information as well, how it is available for all the stakeholders, so that they will be on the same page, they will be having the same understanding of it. So that is here we are going to discuss, right? And now, if you want to understand this requirements life cycle, okay, it all begins with the representation of a business need as a requirement. So that's where the business need comes into picture. Okay. Now, after that, we continue through the development of a solution. Ends with a solution, the requirements are represented, and it is retired. Okay. Now, actually what happens is that, let me say you got one requirement, a need. What we'll do, we will from that need we will come up with a requirement, and that requirement will develop as a solution, and we map this requirement onto the solution, and once it is satisfied, then we say that is retired. Okay. So when it is mapped onto a solution and the value is gained, then we call it as required. It is retired. That means it is done. So basically, we need to understand how the life cycle will go from initiation of that particular need until it is actually been delivered as a solution back to the client. This is what we are going to discuss now. Okay. Now, here we have, as I've been telling you, we have so many tasks here. Like we have 5 tasks here. Okay, these 5 tasks are like you can understand in this way. These 5 tasks are trace requirements. The second task is maintain requirements. Third task is prioritize requirements, and fourth task is assess requirements changes, and the fifth one is approve requirements. These are the 5 tasks which are there in requirements lifecycle management. Okay, how many tasks are there? We have 5 tasks here. What is the first one? Trace requirements. We have to trace the requirements. What is the second one? We are going to maintain the requirements. Okay, and the third one, we have to prioritize the requirements. And fourth one, we have to assess requirements changes. That is, here we are going to handle just change requests. And fifth one, we have to approve the requirements. That means here we have to take consensus from all those required stakeholders, and we have to make the business analysis information available to them. So this is what we are going to do in these tasks. Now let us discuss about the first one, requirements. Let us discuss about the first task here. Okay, now mapping on to this okay, let us discuss about the tracing the requirements. Now basically, tracing the requirements, we all know about traceability matrix, right? Traceability matrix, how we are going to trace it right from the need onto a solution, what process we have to follow, and how this process is defined to trace the requirements, it is discussed here. Okay, this is discussed here. And before I could okay, let me go to the previous slide and tell you about this. Okay, if you see here, okay, you see here trace. Here what I want you to understand is trace requirements, the task, the output would be like requirements traced and designs also traced. That means a requirement will have two outputs, one is requirements traced and designs traced. Okay, maintain requirements will have requirements maintained and designs maintained. And prioritize requirements, now you know what will be the output, requirements prioritized, designs prioritized. And then we have this assess requirements changes, then it is requirements change assessment and a design change assessment. And approve requirements, then it is requirements approved, designs approved. You got me clear on this? In this way it is going to happen here. Okay, got it? So as I've been telling you, requirement is not alone requirement, it is requirement and design. So that is what we are going to discuss now in detail. Okay, fine. Now let us start with the trace the requirements. In tracing requirements, okay, what is the purpose of tracing these requirements? Okay, now we have to ensure that requirements and design at different levels are aligned to one another, and we manage the impact of change to one level on the related requirements. Here, okay, let me get into the main discussion, then you will be understanding what we are actually making it. So in this traceability, we can go forward tracing and backward tracing, both we have to do it. Okay, and here why this tracing is there is that because going forward we anticipate more changes to come, and to facilitate those changes, this traceability will definitely help you out. Okay, so that's the very reason before we begin anything, we should come up with the traceability mechanism, or we have to come up with the traceability architecture kind of thing, so that it becomes easy for us to go to the next levels. Okay, now here we have this you see the requirements traceability is used to help ensure the solution conforms to the requirements, that is for whatever given need we are able to give the solution. For that traceability is help, and to assist in scope change, risk, time, cost, and communication management. All this we can understand when we are tracing it. Okay, and to detect missing functionality or to identify if they are implemented functionality that is not supported by any requirement. So all this we can, these are the advantages of having a traceability, right? And then we have the requirements traceability enables faster and simple impact analysis. That means if any change is going to happen, that is that we are going to make it up, and more reliable discovery of inconsistencies and gaps in the requirements, and deeper insights into the scope and complexity of a change. And we have reliable assessment of which the requirements can be addressed, which which have not. That means here like we will understand, suppose the client is giving you 100 requirements, all the 100 requirements have been mapped or not, you can easily understand. If anything is dropped as well, you will understand, okay, this is considered, this is not considered, that will be understanding it. Okay, fine. And the next one is we have to understand the value. Okay, like how the traceability goes in there. First of all, we have a value chain, and this value chain, actually how this value is brought on is by implementing business process. Okay, and this process will have sub process, and that sub process will have activities, and that activities will have tasks. Okay, a value is achieved like the task performed at this level. Okay, so that hierarchy we need to understand. That means if something changes here, it impacts the task. If something changes here, it impacts the value. So that you need to understand the traceability that happens in a process. And coming to this software requirements traceability, as we have been discussing about the types of requirements, we have this business requirements, stakeholder requirements, and solution requirements. In solution requirements itself, we have this design, code, and testing that happens in the solution requirements. Hope you that we have discussed about it. And also we have transition requirements that helps us to actually migrate or push the system into functionality. And here we need to understand this is process traceability, and this is software requirements traceability. That means the business needs, first of all, from the business needs, business requirements are tracked out, and from the business requirements we have this stakeholder requirements, and from the stakeholder requirements we get this solution requirements, and the solution requirements may we find the design, coding, and testing. Like that we will be having it. Okay, so first of all we need to understand the values of it. Okay, and the next, let us go to the trace requirements. Trace requirements takes requirements and designs as inputs. We will trace the requirements, and here we have the requirements traced. The output would be requirements traced, and designs traced will be the output of it. And how we are going to do this particular task is under the like guidelines. You said the domain knowledge, information management approach, legal and regulatory information, and requirements management tools or repository. All this is considered, and then we are going to make it up. Okay. And inputs, it is like the requirements, and the designs will be the inputs. Okay, so requirements may be traced to other requirements including goals, objectives, business requirements, stakeholder requirements, solution requirements, and transition requirements, all this there. And this is like maybe trace it to the solution components, visuals, business rules, and other work products. So requirements, if you see how it has been from where it has been handled, all this we'll be going to discuss. We have to consider it as inputs. And designs means it may be traced to other requirements, solution components, and other work products. That means the requirements and designs will be considering like how they are been actually been defined. From there we are going to take it forward about this trace requirements, right? And now you look into the level of requirements. It is like the effort and the trace of this. Okay. So let me just, okay. The purpose of trace requirements is to ensure that the requirements and the designs at different levels are aligned to each other, and to manage the effects of change to one level on the related requirements. That means at every hierarchy, this particular change or this particular requirements will have an impact. The effect of change is felt at every level of this related requirements and designs. That is what we have to ensure it. Okay. Now, if you want to understand the traceability, the main purpose of this traceability is that okay, traceability enables a faster and simple impact analysis, more reliable discovery of inconsistencies and gaps in the requirements, and a deeper insights into the scope and complexity of a change, and a reliable assessment of which the requirements have been addressed and which have not been addressed. So that will be the impact of it. Okay, and once you look into this, the level of formality. Okay, here we'll be looking into the elements is the level of formality. Now, when you are tracing the requirements, business analyst considers the value of each link is supposed to deliver, as well as the nature and use of the specific relationship that has been created. The effort to trace the requirements grows significantly when the number of requirements or level of the formality increases. That means we have to understand if something is, what is the value chain link we have to understand. The value chain link we have to understand. That is the till what extent the impact can be felt, we need to identify it at this level. The formality we have to level of formality we have to identify it. And then it is the relationships. Now we have to, there are several types of relationships that a business analyst considers when defining the traceability approach. Number one is derive. Now derive means relationship between two requirements. Okay, relationship between two requirements used when a requirement is derived from another requirement. This type of relationship is appropriate to link requirements on different levels of abstraction. Okay, if you want to understand, for example, a solution requirement derived from a business or a stakeholder requirement. Okay, that means if a stakeholder requirement changes, even the solution requirement also changes. So that is the traceability will be there from here to here. That is the deriving. And the second type of relationship we have is depend. It is depend. That means relationship between two requirements used when a requirement depends on other requirement. Types of dependencies means is it necessary and effort. Necessity means if one is implemented, the other should also be implemented to get the value out of it. Okay, so it is like that is necessity. Effort means when a requirement is easier to implement if a related requirement is also been implemented. So it is just like a small change, and that means 2-3 requirements are linked together, and major effort is done on one requirement. The other requirements can be easily be implemented. So we have to look into the dependency part with the necessity, with respect to the necessity and the effort that we have to see it. And the next one is satisfy. Satisfy means if one requirement is implemented through another requirement. Okay, let me say if you have a functional requirement, okay, and the solution component is going to implement it, that the solution component is going to implement it. So therefore this is like satisfying the, this is like satisfy, that the relationship here is satisfy. And next is validate. Validate means it's like the relationship between or the requirement and a test case. Okay, or other element that can determine whether the solution fulfills that requirement or not. That is validate. So here we are having a so if you can see, we are having like types of relationships may, okay, okay, satisfy and validate, we have it. Next is we are going to trace the traceability repository. Okay, here I think I missed one. Okay, just give me a second. Right now when we are tracing it, that should be placed at some place and everyone should be able to understand how this tracing is possible. Okay, sometimes we use this tracing using a simple Excel sheet. Sometimes we may use it using one tool. Okay, we can use it using one tool. So, and how it is available to others. Let me say if I use an Excel sheet and I just do it for myself and I haven't shared it to others, then it is not the case. So just like if you can understand, we have shared through an Google sheet. Through Google Sheet, we have traced that that Excel sheet where it is being traced. So everyone will have an understanding and idea how it is being traced. Okay, got it. So that's how we have to identify the traceability repository. That we have to identify the traceability repository. Okay, got it. And then we can see. Okay, the guidelines already we have gone through it. The domain knowledge, information management approach, legal and regulatory information. Okay, and then we have this okay, the techniques used. Now what techniques we can use it here, like business rules analysis. And business rules analysis means like you can say how this rules can be implemented through what requirements that we are going to understand it, and functional decomposition and process modeling. Okay, process modeling and scope modeling, we will be using it. Okay, and then we have to understand the key stakeholders here. One is the customer, who actually gives you the requirements and how it is implemented, kind of thing. That is the domain subject matter experts, and implementation subject matter experts will be there, and the end users who will be using this, and the operational support. Okay, and the operational support can be used, and the project manager, sponsors, suppliers, and testers will be a part of it. Okay, fine. And the output is like requirements traced and the designs traced. The requirements traced and the designs traced. Okay, this we should have a clarity on it. Okay, and then how we are going to maintain the requirements. Okay, now this task of maintaining the requirements, if you see, okay, so here we are going to understand the accuracy and consistency of a particular requirement, how it is managed through the requirements life cycle. We are going to see it, and also any reusability of the requirements are there, we have to identify it and keep it aside. Okay, now here we need to understand what attributes are there for a requirements, what is the source of a requirement, and how we can prioritize the requirement. We have to set those all these attributes there to it. Okay, and where we are going to store it, and how the consistency is being given, and what is the how we are going to get approvals of it, what is the impact of this requirement structure onto the other manageability and traceability, how it is being supporting the other attributes of requirements management. All this we will be considering in this maintain requirements. Okay, and maintain requirements will take requirements and design as the inputs. They maintain the requirements, and output would be requirements maintained and design maintained, and the guidelines here used is information management approach. Okay, now here let us try to see the elements of it. Number one is we are going to maintain the requirements. Number one, we are going to maintain the requirements, right? So how we are going to maintain the requirements? Here we have to understand what attributes, what is the structure of a requirement, and what is the relationship among these requirements. We are going to understand it. Okay, for that we will see that. Okay, this particular maintaining the requirements. Okay, we have to maintain they remain correct and current after an approval of a change, and we are responsible to conduct the maintenance to ensure the level of accuracy is maintained. Okay, and these requirements should be properly maintained, that they should be clearly named, defined, and easily available for the stakeholders. Now generally there will be some ambiguity in the vocabulary. Sometimes there will be some ambiguity in the vocabulary. I'll tell you, on one occasion when I'm working on one project, okay, I came across certain different vocabularies used. Okay, so it is for the let me say that particular what we say office has multiple branches or multiple locations. Okay, uh, so different stakeholders called different gave different vocabulary. Like one guy told it is location, other guy told it is office, another guy told it is branch. So likewise for the same entity, they are using a different vocabularies this, and they used because actually they're maintaining their own Excel sheets. In their Excel sheets, the data which they're using is somebody titled as location, somebody titled it as branch, and somebody titled it as office. Like they are using the same data here, the meaning is the same, but the way they address is different. So we have to understand it like how these are there. Now once you start analyzing it, you'll come to understand, okay, here office, location, branch are one and the same. Likewise when you are doing it, when you are going to maintain that requirements, you need to understand what the consistency of it, the correctness of it, and different vocabularies may are there. You have to bring it to a single taxonomy there, so that we have to understand it, and then we have to set that how we are going to maintain these designs. Okay, and attributes, we have to give attributes to it. Okay, while eliciting requirements, business analyst elicit requirements attributes as well. So information such as requirement source, priority, complexity aid, and okay, that will be making it in the life cycle. These are equally important for us. Each requirement may, who has given you the requirement, what is the priority they given you, and how complex is this requirement, we will understand it. Okay. And as and when we start working, okay, we discover that while extracting more information, whatever this information, whatever we gathered here, these attributes may change with time. With change, with more information, these attributes may change, like the priority may change, or some, let me say, the way the requirements are being handled is changed, like that it will maintain. So we have to understand in attributes that all these components are considered, and then we have to look into the possibility of reusing these requirements. Okay. Now, where this is a very, very important aspect which a BA is like the advantage of having a BA in a project is that because we can actually identify reusability of the requirements. We can identify reusability of the requirements, like so we have to understand requirements that are candidates for long-term use by the organization. We have to identify them, and we should clearly name them, define them, and store in a manner that everyone can actually use it. All stakeholders know about it, and all developers will be knowing about it, and they can reuse it when such context comes. Okay. And these reusable requirements can be used within the current initiative, with similar initiatives, or within the similar departments, or throughout the entire organization you can use them. And what can be these requirements? I can give you a simple example. Let me say date field would be there. If you click on the date field, that calendar app will pop up. Now that is a validation. Like this, that kind of code, if you write it once, it can be reused wherever there is a date field. Wherever there is a date field, that calendar pop-up code can be reused anywhere. So that kind of unnecessarily we need not write the same code multiple number of times. So you can keep it in one library. Once one developer develops it, you can keep it in one library, and thereby the other people can start using it. For that, you can define one structure for reusability. Okay. And similarly, validations on, let me say, on a customer name, or validations on let me say date of birth, or validations on time, or validations on a different fields, like which is like known to us. So those things, whatever we do it, these are potential candidates for reusability. So we can have an idea about them. We can have an idea about them, and we can identify them, and we can use that for reusability. Reusability would be there. For example, I can even take that payment gateway. Now payment gateway is integrated to one process. The other guys also use it. Then the similar process can be implemented in the other processes as well. Reusability. So we have to identify the requirements which are reusable, and we have to maintain one library about this reusability, and all the concerning stakeholders, developers, and testers, everybody should be aware of it, so that they can start using it. Fine, got it. So this is what we can actually see about this. Okay. And here, okay, reusability of it and information management approach, we are going to understand it. And the techniques, business rules analysis, data flow diagrams, data modeling, okay, these things can be used. And the functional decomposition, same thing, process modeling and business use case scenarios, user stories. And the key stakeholders would be like domain matter experts and implementation subject matter experts will be there, operational support, regulator. Okay, that is there. And you can see the output. It is requirements maintained and designed maintains, and design maintains. Both will be the outputs of it. And then we are going to prioritize the requirements. For prioritize the requirements, okay, here the purpose is to rank the requirements in order of the relative importance. Okay. And because of the prioritization, we can give more value to the stakeholders, because more important uh, requirements would be addressed first, and they can start working on it. Okay. And prioritization is an ongoing process. It will keeps on updating, like every time it changes. First time whatever you see is not always the same priority will not remain there. So as the time progresses and the context changes, the priority may change. Okay. So for prioritize the requirements, we take the requirements and designs as the inputs, and the outputs would be requirements prioritized and design prioritized, and the guidelines which we use are like business constraints, change strategy, domain knowledge, governance approach, requirements architecture, and requirements management tools repository, and solution scope. All this is taken as the guidelines, and we are going to make it up. Okay, and then for prioritizing the requirements, we are going to take requirements and designs as the inputs. And let us look into the elements. Number one is basis for a prioritization. How we are going to prioritize based on the benefit, penalty, cost, risk, dependencies, time sensitivity, stability, and regulatory or policy compliance. Based on any of these parameters, we can actually do that particular prioritization. Okay, prioritization can be done on multiple based on many factors. One such factors can be like benefit. What is the benefit of doing it early? That will be seeing, or penalty, because if you don't do it, you lose so and so. That is the penalty. And cost, based on low cost generally will be given more priority. And based on the risk, if the risk is high, first of all we have to understand where the risk lies and then accommodate that particular risk and take it forward. And based on the dependencies and time sensitivity and stability of the application depends on the on this types of requirements. Okay, so these are considered, and then we are going to make it up. And then we have the challenges of prioritization. When you actually go for prioritization, stakeholder may give you these prioritization levels. Now different stakeholders may have different let me say priorities for the same requirements. In such cases there will be a conflict, so you have to resolve the conflict, make everyone understand it from the same dimension, and then you have to come up with a common prioritization for all this. And the technique which we use as well, it should be like let me say one stakeholder use prioritization to be like a high, medium, low. The other priority, high, medium, low, the other stakeholder may use it in the scale of 10 to 1. Every stakeholder use different modes of prioritization, then this will fail. So that's the very reason we have to actually make that how we are going to prioritize, that process in which you are going to prioritize, the method in which we are going to make it happen should be aware to everyone, and all these stakeholders follow the same approach so that they'll be on the same page. Okay. And prioritization is a continuous process because as the time progresses, new requirements may come in, or the present requirements may gain more importance, like that. So like that, it is a continuous prioritization will happen. Fine. Now if you look into the guidelines, already we have gone through it, those guidelines. Okay, and then we have this techniques how we are going to make it. One is backlog management, business case, decision analysis. Okay, and estimations, we can use it there. And financial analysis, interviews, item tracking, prioritization, like risk analysis and management workshops, we can use it for this. Okay, and the stakeholders, okay, because it is a prioritization, so we involve who are directly related to this particular requirements implementation and proposal, and like management. All these are considered, like customer, end user, implementation subject matter expert. Okay, and project manager, regulator, sponsor. Right, these are considered. And the next one would be like the outputs are what? Requirements prioritized and designed prioritized. Okay, so what is the value of each requirement here, you can easily understand from this levels. Okay, next it is handling change requests. Assess requirements changes. This is all about handling change requests. Right, now the purpose of handling change requests, because as the project starts, definitely will start getting change requests, so there should be a mechanism in order to handle this change requests. So what is the implication of this proposed changes on this requirements and design? We have to evaluate it for that. So we are going to assess the changes that happens in the requirements. We have to assess requirements changes here. Okay, so here we need to understand the existing requirements and designs, and what is the impact of any change that could happen on this. We have to understand here. And then we have this okay, now here till what extent that impact would be, based on it how we are going to handle these changes, we will be making it here. We have to align these changes to the overall strategy, and we will see the effects of value delivered to the business of the stakeholder groups, and the impact on the time or the resources required to deliver, and if it alters any risks, opportunities or concerns, we have to understand it. Okay, and then if you see this assess requirements changes, okay, it is going to take requirements, designs, and the proposed changed. With respect to that change requirements, all this is taken as input, and then we assess what is the requirements change here, and the output would be requirements change assessment, and design change assessment would be the output. And the guidelines is changed, used here is changed strategy, domain knowledge, governance approach, and here we have the regulatory body, legal and regulatory information, and requirements architecture and solution scope will be here. Okay, these are the guidelines which we'll be considering. And then we have this okay, number one is we have to assess the formality, determine the formality based on the information available and apparent importance of the change, and the governance process we have to understand it. Here we have two approaches. One is predictive approach and the other one is adaptive approach. Predictive approach means it's like a waterfall model. There we have so much of dependencies on the other components, other processes, like everything is interleaved here. So that is a predictive approach. And whereas adaptive approach, it is less formality, that the impact on other components and the impact on the architecture, generally it will be very less in the adaptive approach. First of all, we need to understand what sort of a change we are going to bring in. So first of all, we have to assess the formality of it. Okay, and then we have to do the impact analysis. That means we perform it to assess or evaluate the effect of change, and we have to understand that traceability will be useful for us, like how it is being traced, this change is going to be traced, we are going to understand it, and we have change trackers for this purpose. And consideration includes, like for this, what we will be looking into the benefit, cost, impacted, scheduled, and urgency. All this will be considered here. Okay, and then if you see the impact resolution, like all impacts and resolutions are documented and all the communicated to the stakeholders. Now when a change request is been happening, so what is the impact of it and how we are going to resolve it, that we have been, that we will make a flow of it, and we talk to the concerning stakeholders, and we make this information available to all the stakeholders. Okay, and this business analysis information available to all the stakeholders, we make it happen, right? And the guidelines and tools already we have discussed about it. Okay, and then we have the techniques here, very similar techniques just like we have used in the previous case will be used, like business case, business rules analysis, decision analysis, requirements document analysis, okay, estimations, financial analysis, and interface analysis, interviews. Okay, and then we have this item tracking, requirements analysis and management workshops. Okay, and then we have this stakeholders who are involved are the customers, okay, and subject matter experts, domain and users, operational support, project manager, these people will be used. Okay, a regulator sponsor. And the outputs as usual, like requirements may change assessment, how we can do that will be the output, and designs may change assessment, how we are going to do, that is also the output. And finally we have this approve requirements, how we are going to approve the requirements. Okay, now for that we have to understand the stakeholders first, and who is the decision makers, like that, and how we are going to take the approval, is it formal or informal, and what sort of information we keep it available for all the stakeholders to understand what is happening here. So all this we'll be discussing here. And the purpose of approve requirements is obtain agreement on and approval of the requirements and design for the business analysis works to continue, and for the solution construction to be proceed. Okay, and then we will be seeing like approval of the information may be formal or informal, and how we are going to discuss communicate with the key stakeholders, and we take an agreement or an consensus on the changed requirements or the new requirements, how we are going to communicate the outcome of these discussions, and how we are going to track and manage the approval, we need to understand it. Okay, and if you see the approve requirements will take requirements and designs as the inputs, and the outputs would be like requirements approved and designed approved, And the guidelines and the tools, if you see, these are the change strategy, governance approach, legal or regulatory information, and requirements management tools and solution scope. So this we will be considering here. Okay. And then if you see, the inputs would be like requirements verified and designs will be taken as inputs. And then if you look at it, number one, we have to understand the stakeholder rules. Number one, we have to understand the stakeholder rules. The stakeholder roles, like who is the decision maker, like RICA, who is the decision maker, and who is going to approve it. Okay, who is going to approve it, what is the process of taking an approval, till what extent these stakeholders will be responsible. So we have to identify it and understand the stakeholder roles. And if there is any conflict, because there is a chance that a conflict can happen in this particular process, how to handle that conflict and how to come up with this issue management, that we are going to discuss here. And then we have this we have to make everyone understand or come to a common consensus, so that or an agreement, so that everyone is on the same page. That means they understand the project in the same way. Okay, so how we are going to make it up here on the gain agreement, it is there. And then we track and communicate approval. After this approval is done, how this approval is done, that we document it and we make it available to all the stakeholders there. Okay. And next is we'll be discussing about the techniques used here is acceptance and evaluation criteria, and the decision analysis, item tracking, reviews, workshops. This can be taken as the okay. And then we have this stakeholders coming into picture, and after the stakeholders, the output is requirements approved and designed approved. Fine. So here we need to understand about each of these tasks, what inputs they're going to take, what outputs they're going to generate, and under what guidelines and tools this entire action is going to, they're going to perform it. Okay, and what are the techniques used, and who are the stakeholders involved, like we have to go ahead on it. Okay, now what we have to do is that same old you take up that pathvista HR consultancy case study, and you start, even though it is independent of the project, but consider it as a as a base, the case study as a base, and start coming up with what we can do it in each of the elements. In the task we have elements, so identify the task, what it can happen, and try to map the elements here. So that discussion will definitely give us more clarity about this knowledge area, like requirements lifecycle management. Fine, got it clear on this? And any questions you have from your side, let me know.